Hey, what's up everybody? Zian over here from Nintendo Life, and today we are here to talk with you all about Fire Emblem Three Houses, because I honestly just got to spend about an entire day playing it, and there's honestly so much to talk about with this game. I barely even scratched the surface of it. The sheet that they gave us that said, you know, you can't talk about this or that, I didn't even get close to that. I don't know how long it would have taken me to get there, but not even close. And originally, my height for Fire Emblem Three Houses was a little bit lower on the totem in comparison to everything else that's coming out this year, but just because of the lack of, I guess sort of the lack of information, and the houses aspect didn't really appeal to me, the whole school thing. And then my bosses were like, hey, do you want to do some content for Fire Emblem Three Houses? And I was like, well, do I? And honestly, I never thought that I'd actually be able to have the time for the game or be able to make the time for the game. But now that I've actually started playing it, I'm extremely excited to go back and delve more into the story and characters. And basically what we're going to do with this video is I'm going to talk a little bit about the story. I don't want to delve much into spoilers, just because I think when playing a game like this, the least amount of information you can get about the story, the best. So that way you can be surprised. And so we're going to keep the story to a minimum. Then we're going to be talking a chunk about the Garreg Monastery, or like the school life setting of the game. And then we're going to be talking about the battle system and what's all new for that. So essentially the story revolves around a mercenary who, of course, go figure, has a very bad case of amnesia. He ends up meeting up with some strangers who are out in a battle, and so you join up with them and help them fight these bandits that are attacking them. And then you end up finding out that they are all house leaders to this really like prestigious academy. Then turns out your father, who's also actually with you, but you don't really like remember that he's your father, because remember, you have amnesia. Turns out he used to be a knight at this academy. And so you end up going there, you end up getting roped into going to visit and everything. And then, you know, one thing leads to another, and now you're a teacher at the school. It all happens super fast. Before we get into more of the story and the school stuff, is there's no character customization in this game, besides the fact that you get to choose two different forms, which I think is really neat that they call them forms. You can choose to be like the guy or the girl, and there's no eye color options, no hair color, no facial structures, no different voice options, nothing. I'm assuming that they kept it that way just so that way the animated cutscenes would stay consistent. Otherwise it probably would have been really tough to try to, if they weren't pre-rendered, but they very much are. Or in previous Fire Emblem games like Fire Emblem Awakening, sometimes I know they would do things like you see it from the main character's like perspective, like a first person point of view. They're not first person, not third person either, but then once you get to the school, you, like I said, you end up becoming a teacher. So there are three different houses total. There's the Black Eagles, the Blue Lions, and the Golden Deer. They each have around like 7 to 8 students per house. And you basically, once you come to the school and learn that you're gonna be a teacher, you go figure out which class you want to teach. So you'll go meet all the different students and learn a little bit about them, and then you basically just get to pick. And I ended up picking, I was originally gonna pick the Black Eagles because I really liked their house leader. I thought she was really cool. Dimitri is the leader from the Blue Lions. I thought he was just kind of lame. Like, he looked a little bit like Link, honestly. And then the Golden Deer, I honestly didn't really like care for their leader too much either, until I actually met all of them. Going around and talking about them and learning about each of them really changed my opinion. So I ended up actually going with the Golden Deer instead, because I felt like their cast of their class, all of the different classmates and stuff, I felt like they were very varied. Like, you had, each character was a different type. It was like I was picking like the cast of an anime, or who I was gonna spend, you know, my time with, which is basically what you are doing. And it was giving me like strange Pokemon vibes when I was picking my class. I didn't know, and because they introduced it to you pretty quickly, so it feels like you're picking a starter Pokemon almost. And they let you sit on the screen for as long as you want. If you pick one, like, you know, they're like, are you sure that this is the one that you want to take? And but then once you pick a class, you're stuck with it. Another thing as well is there's this green-haired character named I believe it's Sothis. She's kind of this character that you see a lot in the beginning of the game, and then periodically throughout the story she'll pop back up here and there, and she's just this like character that's in your head that talks to you. And from the day that I played, I didn't really learn much more about her story. You do kind of find out that there's some time travel stuff, or that she's able to control time, or you are, we're not really sure. Like maybe she's a part of you, I have no idea. Maybe if she's her own thing, if she's a ghost. There's a lot of questions still about that, but I don't know yet. And even if I did, I don't think I'm allowed to tell you anyways. So we'll just have to wait till later to talk more about that. So the school life, the Greg Miller Monastery. So the school life, or the Garreg Mach Monastery portion of the game, is probably what we're going to end up talking about the most, because it's the most different in comparison to any other Fire Emblem game. And there's a lot to talk about here with this. It's this free roam area where you can run around and interact with students to like raise support levels and collect items. There's quests there. There's no battling, but it's basically the open world portion of the game is all there. I haven't played a Fire Emblem game since Awakening, so I don't think Fates had anything like that. I did play Warriors, but that doesn't count. Originally, when you first start out, you can only explore a few different areas, like the dormitory, like the main hall. A lot of it just kind of looked the same, honestly. It was fairly easy to get lost. So the dormitories, they don't even display the class house flags or anything like that on the dorms, so there's nothing really differentiating them from each other besides the fact that you just have to look on your map and see what they are. But then as the more you play, the more of the monastery will unlock itself to you, essentially. Once you've visited an area as well, you can actually fast travel around. So if you're the type of person that doesn't really care to roam around and, you know, collect items and talk to random strangers and stuff, and you just want to get quests done and the tasks done that you're there for, you can fast travel around the map. But it really doesn't take that long to run around either. And like I said too, the more that you roam around, the more familiar you're going to be with the place as well. So that'll help out a lot too. And there's a number of different ways that you can spend your time in the monastery, because you're not restricted to like a clock or anything when you're there, but you do have something called activity points, and we'll talk about those in just a second. But so while you're there, there's a number of different things you can do. You can spend time in the garden making flowers and growing crops and things for you to use in battle or to give as gifts, or you can even go to the cathedral, and there's like a little question like box that random people will drop notes into, and then you have to try to basically help people with their problems. And then if you help them correctly, they'll get like bonus like experience or points or something. I don't remember that too well, but you can really mess that up as well. But then certain activities like sharing a meal or taking a lesson from like a fellow professor, those require activity points. And those activity points, you start out with only a couple, but they come from something called your professor level. And your professor level basically determines how many of those activity points you have that you can spend in a day. And you can raise your professor level by reading books, interacting with students, by sharing meals, or just partaking in quests and actual activities. So the more stuff you do around the monastery, the more things you'll then be able to do in turn. Like I was saying too, there's quests that you can do. There's bulletin boards scattered all around the school that'll actually have little like Hedwig-like owls up on the top of them to kind of denote where they are in the school. But you can check those. There's also one in your room, because since this is a school and everything, you have a place to stay. That's weird. Why is there a bulletin board in your room? Like someone sneaking in there and like pinning stuff up on the wall like when you're sleeping? Like, hey, he's gonna need these quests for tomorrow. Better put them up. These quests, some of them will require activity points, some won't, which is really nice. And you'll be able to tell which ones do based on, there will be like a little hourglass above the character's head when you go to talk to them for the quest, or it should show that on the actual bulletin board as well next to the quest. And some of these quests will be like fetch quests where you have to go like find an item somewhere. If you do that, there's gonna be like items scattered all over the monastery. They'll just be kind of like blue little like glowing, not orbs, but just like a blue aura glowing on the map or in the open world. And you can go and pick those up. And sometimes they'll be related to quests, sometimes they'll just be random items or lost items or different equipment. There's all sorts of different stuff that you can find. But that's another thing to do, by the way, when you're in the school. You can just roam around and collect all those things during a day. There are a lot of students as well in the game that just can't be interacted with. Some of them will just have kind of like little speech bubbles that when you walk up to them, like it'll pop up and they'll say something, not always very generic, like it's usually pertaining to something around the school or an event that might be happening, but you can't always interact interact with them. If you can, there will be like a little red outline around that bubble. And if you don't feel like talking to anybody too, if you just run right on past somebody, it doesn't matter either. You don't lose any points. You just might, you just won't gain anything from not talking to them, because you can increase like support levels. You can just gain not only just information, but you can gain like more experience basically from talking to them. Not battle experience, but there's all sorts of different levels in this game. There's all sorts of different points, and I know it can get to be a lot, but you get stuff from talking to people if you make the correct answers. This new Fire Emblem is drawing a lot of inspiration, I would say, and probably a lot of others, from Persona. There is a calendar system in the game. Whenever you finish up a day, you'll get to see the calendar, and it'll have a bunch of different things on it, like birthdays for all of the different students in the school or teachers. You can give them gifts on their birthdays. There's also like different events and holidays that will be posted on the calendar as well. A calendar also, it'll be 1 month long, and they use the full like 12-month calendar, but they call each month a moon instead, which can get like a little confusing. On most Sundays is when you get to explore. You don't get to explore like, every day of the week. It's only typically on Sundays. During the week, you're going to be teaching the students all of their different classes and things. So, but then at the end of the week is when you get to explore, interact with the students, go on events, different things like that. But so on Sundays, you can either choose to explore the monastery, you can go enter some battles, or like, do practice training. You can also host a seminar, or even just participate in one to learn, like further your own education and your students. Or you can choose to just simply rest to boost motivation for your students. You can't always choose to skip a lot of this stuff as well, and some of the things will just become automated, like teaching your students. But if you do choose to skip some of this stuff, like if you were choose to just rest every single day, you wouldn't be gaining any extra items from exploring the monastery, all of the different like support boosts. You'll miss out on like more opportunities to train in battle. There's tons of stuff that you just miss out on. You like I said, you can skip that stuff, or if you just want to stick to just battling, you can do that too. But there's a lot of the game does revolve around the school life, from what I've seen so far. And the different ways that you can spend your days as well leave a lot of different choices to be had. If you were to play this, I mean, this game seems absolutely huge, but if you were to play this game multiple times based on the different houses that you pick and the way that you spend time with your students and other professors and other characters, the game could drastically be different. It might not, like the main story might not be, but the events that take place around it could be fairly different. There's also a lot of comparisons that I've been having with this game to Animal Crossing as well, and Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons. When you're running around in town, you can garden, for example. There's a big fishing mini game as well, which feels a lot like, it honestly feels a lot like Harvest Moon, Animal Crossing fishing, because you'll pick a bait, which is obviously more complex than those games, but you'll literally just cast your line out, but there will be a big circle on the screen that you have to like rhythmically time and hit in order to catch this fish. And like the fish have stamina bars too, and like I said, there's different baits that you can use that allow you to catch like bigger and crazier fish, or that will just make it easier to catch fish. It's simplistic, but still fairly in depth at the same time, like deep enough to actually make you want to do it. And if you don't have any bait, you just can't fish at all. Another big thing for this game, which is not new to the series, but are the support conversations. It's a great way for you to learn more about your students and just about the other characters in the game. Raising supports will also help how they act in battle too. And it seems to be a lot more fleshed out in this game than it was in previous games. So whenever you hit one of those classes with a character, or if like two of your students hit them together, normally they would just like their headshots would just talk on screen and you'd see them move around a little bit, but that would be it. But in this game, you actually get to see them like 3D modeled within like the different areas that they're talking, and they interact more. It's fully voiced, which it wasn't a lot of the past games from what I remember. It's nice that they went above and beyond with the support conversations this time, because there's a lot of them. Another thing that's important with the school life is the instructions or the lectures portions. So basically, in order to change characters' classes or to progress their skills, you go through the lectures during the week. You can only teach so many students based on how many activity points you have as well, which is, like I was saying earlier, is based on your professor level. So not only will the activity points allow you to take on more quests during like that, the Sunday, but they also affect how many students you can teach during the week as well. Students also have study goals, like one student might want to be a archer and an axe wielder, but instead, like as you play with them, if you decide to like exclusively or more often than not use them as an archer, they might come to you at some point if they're feeling motivated enough and be like, hey, I actually just strictly want to be an archer, or I want to upgrade my class to be a sniper someday. So then you can change their class goal and prioritize what they're learning. So then if you start automating all of that stuff as well, because that's another thing, is you can, instructing your students, you can either pick what you want them to learn just manually, or you can automate it. If you want to stick to battles and do less of this school stuff, by all means, you have more ability to. It's also important to interact with your students evenly. Like if you have a character that you really like, obviously you're going to want to spend more time with them and make sure that they're a better student. But if you spend less time with the other ones, they're going to lose motivation and they won't learn as well as they would if you did just, give them that extra time. So as important as it might be to you to try to put someone up on a pedestal and, make them the best they can be, just make sure that you're giving each student enough time. It doesn't have to be evenly split, but yeah, make sure that you're giving everybody just a little bit of your time, because they really care about what you have to say, which is weird. It's weird to be talking about this like you're a teacher in Fire Emblem. It's strange. And the reason that all matters, and coming back to what I said earlier about classes, is certification exams. So in order to change your classes, you have to pass certification exams for whatever class you want to be. In order to become certain classes, you have to either you have to be a certain level. You also have to have sphere, or there's an orb that you have to have in order to change a class. But then you also have to be proficient enough in a certain skill as well to pass that certification exam. But it's intense. There's this school stuff it's important. It's real, but it's fun. I really enjoyed running around and collecting items in the school and talking with my students and leveling them up almost more than battling, because we'll talk about the battling in a little bit. There's just a lot to the school stuff, and I really enjoyed it a lot. A couple other things to talk about is, unfortunately, there are dogs and cats in the game, and you can clip through them, but you cannot pet either of them. You cannot talk to them, you cannot hold them, you cannot pet the dogs. There's also an online component to this game as well, similar to actually Persona and a lot of other games that feature a lot of choice. When you start your day, there will be percentages, if you choose to connect your game online, telling you what other people decided to do for their day. So then you can kind of try to choose what everybody else is doing, or you can go against the grain and do something completely different. When I was playing at one point, I noticed there was one day where 0% of people decided to rest, and so you know what I did? I rested instead. I don't know if it was probably a really bad idea, but I did it anyway. Like I said before too, if this school portion of the game isn't your cup of tea, you can set most of it to automate. I didn't really have as much time to test to see if that's going to, hinder you from portions of the game. I'm not sure if when you set it to auto, if they go in auto battle and they'll raise their levels on their own, or if you don't go practice battle, maybe you just don't gain any levels at all. I'm not entirely sure, but if you want, you can skip that stuff. Your students will still gain levels, probably just not or they'll still gain stat boosts and things, but it probably just won't be as intensely as if you did it all on your own. So now to talk about battles. So battles can happen as frequently or as infrequently as you like. But if you do want to progress through the game and you really like the school stuff and you don't really care for the battles, you still have to do battles, as at the end of each moon or each month, at the end of a calendar, there is one big event down there that you have to fight for. If you don't level and you don't practice enough and you're not able to do it, I don't know what happens, honestly, but that can't be good. So you basically have to make sure that you're training. And if you don't train, you might not be a high enough level to actually, take on that final event of the month. And then so there's a couple of new things introduced into Fire Emblem Three Houses as far as battles go. There's battalions now. So one thing Nintendo and Intelligent Systems went and did is they hired Koei Tecmo to help with a lot of the animations and just getting multiple characters on screen now. So if you actually notice, at least I didn't notice right away until I started playing, but they look very similar to Fire Emblem Warriors. So I'm assuming they got some help in the art direction end as well. So you can hire battalions now, and what those are basically it's a group of soldiers that you can assign to a unit. They increase their stats, and so there will be different types of battalions as well that will help with different character types. Most battalions seem to have special abilities as well. Some battalions, when you attack with them, they might push back an enemy, or they might prevent an enemy from moving a turn. And when I say push back an enemy, they might push them back one space on the grid map. And the more you fight with your battalions, the more that they also actually gain experience as well. Now their level, it caps out a lot quicker than like your level might, and I'm not sure if you're able to expand their level or like what you do after they cap out. But they do gain experience as well. So there is there is importance to watching that and growing your battalions as well. Another big new thing for this game are demonic beasts. Now, without going into like too much spoiler territory with that, they're basically just like these big hulking monsters that need to be defeated multiple times. So like, you know, normally if you're familiar with the Fire Emblem games, when you defeat an enemy, they disappear. They're gone from the battle, they die. But with these demonic beasts, you have to fight them 2 or even 3 times from what I've been told. They also do have a barrier that you need to destroy. And if you do destroy that, you can confuse or like kind of stun the enemy, and they won't fight back for a brief period of time, which is really nice too, because they counter like fiends. Just they counter literally everything. So it's really important to make sure that you break that barrier as quick as you can. And the beasts are also extremely single-minded. So if you use another move called a gambit move, which I still need to learn more about gambit moves. This game is huge, so I apologize for not like covering everything. But if you use a gambit move, the beast, it will then target that one unit that you attack with the gambit move. So if you want to make sure that it, you know, swings at someone who's like high in defense or something like that, you can make that happen easily. So like I said before, if you enjoy the school stuff, that's cool and everything, stick to it, but you do need to make sure that you're training your units and sticking to battles. You can't just breeze through the game without doing any of the tactical RPG aspect. And then another feature that came back from some of the, I think the previous Fire Emblem games, is called Dynamic Pulse, which allows you to actually, if you're playing on like casual mode, I think, which I was playing on casual mode, permadeath is off because I'm a big wussy. I played the original Fire Emblem on GBA and I was terrible at it, and I liked it a lot, but I couldn't get anywhere. And if I'm gonna get anywhere in this game with the time that I have, I need to play in wussy mode. But so Divine Pulse allows you to reel back the basically moves in the game. You can do it 3 times. I'm not sure how, I think you can turn back like 10 turns. Another online component for the game as well is you can actually see where other players throughout the world have actually died on your maps during battle as well. I don't think this happens during practice battles. I think it's only during like main story battles. If you go up to this glowing spot on the map, you can actually collect like experience from them, or you can collect different like weapons or items. They're not always the best, but it's better than nothing. And if you have like a unit that's not going to be doing anything like that turn, just go have them run over there and collect that. I forgot, you can also recruit new classmates in the game as well. You do have to meet like their requirements, which I think is normally like someone like might require you to have like high enough proficiency in like flying and archery. And then if you meet those, then they will join your team. And now I'm not sure if another character has to, like if you have to drop someone out of your class in order to do that. I'm assuming so. I imagine you can't just have like an overbalanced class. Like you can't have 10 people in your class when everyone else has like 5 now. You know, that just isn't gonna work. But it is cool that, you know, if like, cause I'm really happy with my class of characters, but there were a couple that I really liked as well from other classes that I couldn't have. So it's nice that you'll be able to customize your team based on your likings, as long as you meet their requirements. And then the last thing for battles, at least, there's a mode now in this game where you can zoom super close into the map and you can actually run like free around as your unit. You're actually able to essentially like play more as any of your other characters within the game. The only thing that really does is it zooms super close into the, like I was saying, zooms into the map, and then you can see your unit, and then if you have a battalion with you too, you'll actually see all of your other soldiers with you. And I think Koei Tecmo probably came in to help with that portion of the game as well, just getting that many units on screen at a time. The only thing is it isn't very practical, because you do get like a big map on the side that shows you exactly where your grid is and stuff, but when the game zooms in like that, it pulls the camera like into like a third person's perspective, so it's really hard to tell like how far you're traveling like on the grid, unless if you're actually looking at that map. And it's just not very practical to be like looking over at your map and then checking your screen. It's kind of cool to switch to occasionally. Like I think of the 3DS in Ocarina of Time as like a good example of that. Like I wouldn't have played Ocarina of Time 3D all the time, but it was nice to turn on in certain moments. And I think this like zoomed in camera portion is going to be nice for like small instances. Like if you have a giant army around you and you just kind of want to free run around as your favorite student, like you can go do that for a little bit. Another thing about Persona as well is I can't confirm at the moment, but I think there's a lot of voice actors from the English dub of Persona 5 in this game. The new voice actor for Igor actually plays as your dad. I think Morgana's character from Persona 5 is a character in here as well, and I could be wrong. They might just be extremely similar. Let me know in the comments below if you guys, you know, hear something about that, because I'm very curious to find out. And then a couple minor gripes that I have about the game as well is kind of the art style, honestly. I really liked the like glow and charm that the 3DS games had, and with the new like cell shaded art style that the Switch version has, they just kind of lost all of that. It looks a lot like they just kind of copy pasted the style from Fire Emblem Warriors, which is great, and like things look really good at times. It's just a shame because there was just so much character to the 3DS feel, and I really like the pixel art from the classic games too, and you still do get that from time to time. Like they'll implement it into when you're like choosing a new character class, you'll see some of that. When you're looking at enemy units on the field, you might see, like I noticed when I was fighting one of the demonic beasts that I could see he had like his own little like character sprite up there. Like missed that original charm of some of the older Fire Emblems. Like I was saying how the art clashes too, there's parts in the monastery where I'll probably throw it up on screen here, but when you go over to like the armory to buy like new equipment, you'll see there's like a couple racks of armor, and the armor is not, it has like a more realistic look to it. It doesn't match the cel shaded world. So it's almost like there's two different art teams working on that stuff because they just don't mesh well together. I don't understand it. And like some of the other environments look that way as well. It's just weird. It just doesn't blend well together. Basically, in conclusion, like a lot of this I know sounds very, very daunting, and that was part of the reason why like I wasn't super excited about this game, just because it felt like a lot, and we didn't really have a lot of information on it, and that's why I really wanted everyone to be able to get their hands on a demo so that way they can get a feel for this game. And now that I've played it a chunk, I am so excited to continue playing. I beat Awakening beginning to end when that came out back in the day. Like I'm a big fan of Rune Factory. I played the heck out of Rune Factory 3. I'm a big Animal Crossing guy too, and I really like Persona 2, and this is just like a really big mashup of all of those different genres. And if that's your cup of tea, I think you're really going to enjoy this game a lot. And there's a lot more, like I said, that like I haven't even gotten to play. This game is absolutely massive. So if you're looking for a new huge RPG, this is definitely going to be it for the Switch. Feel free to let us know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on Fire Emblem Three Houses. There's going to be a lot of information coming out today, so we're really excited to hear your thoughts. And while you're at it too, why don't you let us know which house you'd probably choose if you were going to get the game, or if you're uncertain. I went with the Golden Deer. There's also the Black Eagles and the Blue Lions as all of your different options. And if you enjoyed this video, why don't you go ahead and class change that like button into a subscribe button. And go ahead and ring that notification bell to be notified whenever we release new videos. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Xeon from Nintendo Life, and we'll see you next time. This is literally the only energy drink that doesn't make me feel like trash. I don't know why. I don't know what's in it. Even normal Red Bull makes me feel like crap. Maybe I need to try that like Bang stuff, that beat 'em ups drinks. Just send me a can. Send me 2. I know Quick Trip sells it, but it's like $4. You think I'm made of money?